Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. Championship Week Video Notebook, day number 11. I'm your
Wow.
host, Chad Sherwood. Down below is John Stalika, who seems to have gone to the same shop that I did for clothing. And over there, David Griggs in the
I,
puppet box.
I don't wear any clothes.
I really
Can't find
didn't need
anything
to,
on my
I
side.
don't need to know that, please.
Yeah, I'm just
Can we start
sitting
over?
here in the raw, in the puppet bunker.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's Championship Week Video Notebook. Are we calling Mark Emmert yet?
Yeah, I have been reaching out to the committee. Been reaching out to Mark Emmert a couple times. Been wanting to talk to Andy Warlock. He won't answer the
Andy
phone.
Warlock. I would try David Warlock.
David War. Oh, maybe I was asking that. I could have been asking for the wrong person. David Warlock not answering the phone. I've called several people on the committee, not answering the phone.
Well, it hasn't been
I'm
a
getting
good.
a little. I just want to make sure that they're watching our shows and looking at our notes and that they're making the right decisions.
This is what happens when you treat to who is it? Alfred Fonzarelli last night.
Yeah, okay, that's it. Both of you, we're going to just do this. Let's just end the show. Have a good night. Oh,
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
I need some sleep. But let's go. We've got to get through all the conference tournaments. We got a lot to discuss. News and notes. Oh, news and notes. Yeah. Ernie Kent out at Washington State.
Yeah, not too surprising. That is a really, really tough job. The only person that has done well at all is Tony Bennett, and he's just Superman. Okay, say you're Muscle Man. Do you leave Nevada for Wazoo?
No.
Yeah, I mean, you just wonder who they're going to get because even your top mid-major coaches, if you're Nate Oates, do you leave Buffalo for Wazoo?
That depends how much they pay me.
Yeah. If you're Dave Odom at UMBC, do you leave UMBC for Wazoo? I mean, it's Wazoo
in a heartbeat. Okay. But anyhow, Will Wade wants to be coaching LSU. He's not, but we'll get there in a bit too. We'll talk about the SEC. But yes, he came out with a statement today saying that he wants to be coaching. But yeah. Anyhow,
one of the biggest binges of college basketball of the season, at least in a single day. Chad, let's go. Let's get to it. I can't wait.
ACC, it was quarterfinal round day. After Virginia rolled NC State and puts them squarely on the bubble, Florida State won a real close one against Vatech, and then the evening session, Carolina and Duke both rolled. But with having that Florida State Vatech, David, Vatech, even though not at 100% strength, really gave Florida State a game.
Yeah, they had it basically won. Florida State had to hit basically a perfectly executed pass and shot at the buzzer. It was a 3-point shot, which tied it and forced overtime. And then, again, a real exciting period in the overtime. Tremendous effort by Virginia Tech. I know that it bruises the ego a little bit. It kind of stings. But on Sunday, they're not going to care. All it really means is that they get a few extra days off, probably not a protected seed, but at the end of the day, does that even really matter?
No. And we have now semifinal matchups coming between Virginia, Florida State, North Carolina, and Duke. These are potential. We might have 2 1 seeds, a 2 seed, and a 4 seed, if not higher than that.
Right.
We did some research with the help of our good friend Kyle Lamb tonight, who's an expert at research.
Well, let's not use the word friends so
okay. With our acquaintance Kyle Lamb.
Yeah, with our acquaintance Kyle Lamb.
And we did confirm it appears that we believe that this is the greatest semifinals in terms of where they're going to end up seated in the NCAA tournament, where they're ranked nationally right now, that we've ever had any conference tournament from the beginning of time through now.
Yeah, everybody ranked in the top 15, and Virginia number 2, most likely number 1, in the next poll with the Gonzaga loss, and Duke and North Carolina way up there now. So essentially, there's only 4 teams in the top 4. We might have 3 of them plus another Florida State team that might be up on the 3 line by the time this is all over.
We have seen Final Fours that have not had this quality of teams in it.
Right, yeah.
This may be better. This may be a better group of 4 teams that we get in the Final Four. Put it that way.
It may be, yeah.
Stalika, who's winning these games tomorrow?
Well, Virginia did have to sweat a little bit against NC State for the first 25 minutes before blowing it open. But by the same token, Florida State can actually provide some matchup problems for the Hoos right here. But I think it's actually going to be Florida State that gets the upset and faces Carolina in the title game.
Florida State, Carolina, the title game. Well, let's keep things rolling. We'll talk about those
Well,
results.
real quick, Duke, North Carolina. They are a couple just things about them. Both in the hunt for number 1 seeds. Rivalries, Chad. Do you know that they're only 8 miles apart?
David, have they ever met in the NCAA tournament?
A couple times, yes. A couple times, I think. I'll have to go check.
Well, I'm not concerned. They may not have.
Okay, yeah.
You're confusing the NCAAs with the NIT tournament where they've actually met.
Big East tournament was quarterfinal round day. We saw Villanova get a game effort from Providence before putting it away. The evening session was just pretty lousy with Marquette and Seton Hall rolling. But the Xavier Creighton game, Sleeka, they're your team. And as we are joined by Rocco Miller here, but Sleeka, let me go to you for the Xavier Creighton game first.
This was a game that went back and forth between the Musketeers and the Blue Jays, and two of Xavier's grad transfers in Kyle Caslin and Zach Hankins were the big difference, with the Musketeers outscoring Creighton's bench considerably, and Zach Hankins actually hit the game winner with 20 seconds remaining in regulation, and Caslin actually blocked a potential game-winning 3 from Tyshawn Alexander to preserve the win for Xavier, who is now 6-0 in the quarterfinal round in the Big East Conference tournament.
Wow.
Creighton with the loss. We got Rocco with us, and St. John's also suffering a loss in this tournament. Georgetown suffering a loss. All teams that were kind of on the bubble. Any of them could still get in, these 3 teams that lost today?
I think Creighton's probably on the outside looking in, but I think they're still certainly in the conversation. I think Georgetown's probably
Volume.
Yeah. Oh.
We can barely hear you, Rocco.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
There we go. That's better. That's better. There we go.
Okay, we good? Okay.
Yeah.
I was saying that Creighton's probably really close to the bubble now. I think they were right around the cut line. I don't think losing to Xavier completely eliminates them. I think they'll still be discussed, but I would guess they're out. Georgetown, I think, is probably almost certainly out. They really need to do something in this tournament, and that was a disappointing game tonight, big time. And then St. John's obviously getting crushed does not look good, but in the body of work, losing to Marquette is not that bad of a problem when you've already beat them twice. So I think they're getting a little bit closer to the Dayton area of the seed list, but I still think St. John's will find a way to get in unless we see a bunch of bid thieves.
Right. And David, these semifinals tomorrow, Villanova, Xavier, Marquette, Seton Hall. Can Xavier keep the run up and keep their slim hopes alive, which may require 2 more wins, which would be a definite hit?
Right. Yeah, I think they can. Historically, they have had a lot of trouble with Nova, but they did beat them the last time they play it, albeit it was at home. This is a really tough test, and if Xavier wins it, I still don't think that it's enough. It could be enough. There are certainly reasons to take them, especially if they win this, but there's probably more reasons to leave them out. So the storylines are, of the 4 semifinal teams, 2 in for sure, 1 almost certainly in, and Xavier needs to play their way in by winning the tournament.
Yeah, I think Seton Hall's a lock now. Because if they lose, it'll be to a Marquette team or a Villanova team likely, and if it's to a Villanova team, they'll have already been added a win over Marquette. So
and if it's to a Xavier team, then they will have yet another win over Marquette.
Yeah,
so
also same way. All right, Big Ten tournament. It was second round day, I guess we call it, or round 1.2 day or whatever it was, but we saw
opening round 2 is what we're
calling
it on the hoops.
It was an interesting day though. The late game was kind of disappointing. Iowa rolled Illinois, but Minnesota struggled with Penn State.
Needed overtime.
Ohio State, Indiana was a close one, and Nebraska pulled the upset of Maryland. Rocco, what do you take out of these 4 games here?
Well, I was pretty impressed with what Nebraska was able to accomplish. They seem to be riding a wave. Tim Miles is taking over the scene there in Chicago. So that's been pretty cool to see. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what they'll do against Wisconsin tomorrow. And the Minnesota Penn State game, there was a really crucial, I think it was a flagrant foul in a tie game. And Minnesota ended up kind of taking control from there, and that really changed the course.
It was a technical foul, player leaving the bench.
Yeah.
So, not so much a flagrant. Well, it was an ejection for leaving the bench, but they didn't have to call it. I didn't think the refs saw it for a second. You thought that they had gotten away with it. No, they saw it.
Really interesting, though, the Ohio State-Indiana game, we talked about this last night. Now, Ohio State feel a little more comfortable with this win, even if they lose to Michigan State. Oh, Indiana is one of those teams that's going to be sweating right down until Sunday and maybe playing in the NIT now, Stalika.
Well, Indiana's been sweating pretty much for the better part of 2.5 months. I'm not sure that 2 or 3 more days are going to make that much of a difference when you consider they actually played some halfway decent ball the past couple weeks. This was one they certainly could have used, but not necessarily fatal like, let's say, Clemson's loss to NC State was last night.
It could have been fatal. I mean, you are now looking at an Indiana team that is 17-15 overall, only 2 games over 500, 5 games under 500 against Big Ten competition. David, it's not the formula that normally gets you in.
It is, with the exception of the overall record. I at least I think it is. Now, 15 losses is a lot, but when you look at the fact that only 2 of them were 3 of them. I didn't see Nebraska there. When 12 of the when 3 of the 15 were to teams outside the bubble and 12 weren't, and you offset that with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like 5 wins. 5 wins against teams that are inside the bubble. 5 and 12. That's sort of like if they were 2 and 6 against tournament teams, we would probably be saying that they were in or had a chance. 5 and 12 is the same percentage. So, I think the only glaring thing is the overall record. But they played 17 teams that were inside the bubble.
Rocco, if you do the old test of knocking off Tier 4, they're 11-15. That is
and they're 8-15 against just the top 2 quadrants, which is almost like losing 2 out of every 3. And then you've got the 207 non-conference strength of schedule, which is, if you don't like that stat, I get it, but it is disgusting. It is a big deal. So to be not being favorable in all those categories, I think it's going to be really tough for them to get in. I do think they're very close, but we got probably another bid or 2 going to get stolen at some point. It's just I don't know. I think it's too much to wish for.
I agree with you. I think 17-15 just doesn't cut it. But let's move on to tomorrow's games real quick. Michigan State, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Purdue, Minnesota, Michigan, Iowa. If you say Ohio State's in, then the only bid thief left here is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. David,
8 wins away from the national title.
Okay, forget about you. Salika, any upsets tomorrow in terms of seeds, including Nebraska?
I would say Ohio State possibly could be one that could knock off Michigan State, but we'll see what the status is for the Spartans, at least health-wise, on their roster. I mean, the Buckeyes did get a big boost with that Caleb Wesson returning to the lineup earlier today.
Yeah, let's keep rolling here. And the Big 12 saw another huge upset, an upset that absolutely shocked me. I thought this Texas Tech team was playing so good, and there they go, and they lose to West Virginia, who has been shorthanded and is playing their second game in 2 days, just won a thriller over Oklahoma. David, K-State wins, Iowa State rolled, Kansas got by Texas, but what about this? Can West Virginia do this? Can they keep going?
This was inexplicable because a lot of times, we didn't see it so much this year, but you see it a lot. A team that is locked into the NCAA tournament, especially if they're locked into a protected seed, kind of sleepwalks through the quarterfinal games. It's kind of hard to get up for a quarterfinal game when you've already won the league or have a lot of good wins. You almost need to get past that to get to the semis, to be 1 win away from a championship, to kind of get your motor started. But this was a Texas Tech team, and I know that you followed them and you've been on the radio down there. They were very excited to be here. They thought they had a chance to win the tournament. I think they really wanted to win the tournament, and you didn't really expect them to sleepwalk. Not to take anything away from West Virginia, because quite honestly, the last 2 days they've played better than they have at any point in this season, and I include the home win against Kansas in that statement. But wow, have they looked really good in this. But Texas Tech, what happened? I mean, they were down 17 at the beginning of the game, and they just never caught back up.
It was almost inexplicable. But, Rocco, I got to ask you about the other team here. Texas loses to Kansas, and we just debated that Indiana. Don't we have a very similar debate, maybe even worse for this Texas team now? At any shot at getting in, they're now a 500 team. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
that's it, isn't it?
That's pretty much it. Just from the
Yeah.
principle of that, I just can't imagine a 500 team being strongly considered to be in, especially with a tight bubble and a lot of teams that you can argue for. So yeah, I mean that piece alone does it for me. I think they also have losing records against the top quadrants. You go back to that Indiana example, and we can
Yeah.
say the same thing about Texas. So
Well,
there's a kind of a couple big strikes against them right there.
well, yeah, but another thing, Chet, you mentioned the quadrants. If you look at Texas Tech here, they are just 500 against the top 4 quadrants.
Texas, yeah.
Texas. I'm sorry.
Okay. Kansas State, Iowa State, I think has a chance to be a pretty good game. Iowa State impressed me with the way they played against Baylor. Maybe they finally figured things out where they've been struggling a little bit lately, but maybe Kansas wins. They didn't win the Big 12 regular season. Maybe they'll win the Big 12 postseason at this point.
Yeah, it would be fun seeing Kansas play Kansas State in Kansas City. It would be not as fun as seeing them play Missouri in Kansas City. How much fun would that be? Why can't we have that?
Well, I think we got to move on here. Stalika, it was second round or round 1.2 day in the SEC where Florida kept their tournament hopes alive with a win over Arkansas. Auburn took care of Missouri. Alabama with a big win over Ole Miss, and then Mississippi State just rolled A&M. But how about that Alabama team getting a really much-needed win over a probable NCAA tournament team in Ole Miss?
Well, that was one they had to have because it's going to be pretty hard to get a win against Kentucky tomorrow. Florida is another team that also got a win that they had to have against Arkansas. But by the same token, the Gators actually do have a decent shot of knocking off an LSU team that's had loads of off-court distractions over the past week.
And Rocco, Florida and Alabama both have shots to get in. I don't think anybody says the same about South Carolina, the 4 seed. But do we have a potential bid thief here in the SEC? And what do you see in these 4 games tomorrow?
Well, I think South Carolina's played over their head all conference season. The fact that they had a double bye is pretty incredible. But I think Auburn has been – I'm actually surprised Auburn kind of struggled with Missouri today because they've been really rolling lately. I'm actually thinking Auburn can get all the way to the finals, maybe even win it. Especially with the LSU situation. Florida now has an opportunity to take advantage of the LSU situation with no Will Wade. And I think they got everybody available personnel-wise, but I still think the mentality of that LSU team, I don't know what to expect tomorrow. And then in the bottom half of the bracket, I think Tennessee, Mississippi State should be a really good game. Alabama's beaten Kentucky, but it was on their home floor. I don't think they can do it in Nashville, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think Kentucky's going to roll that one.
What's interesting, and I know Rocco works in the media. A lot of us work in the media, and it's so you can get credentialed for a lot of games. We've been credentialed. I say we. John Deitel has for events like the Big Ten tournament. Will Wade, head coach, unable to get a credential for this event. I don't think so. That's something.
David, I'm going on to the Pac-12 here.
Okay.
Well, we are actually missing
to the Pac-12.
Well, we're actually missing the score. But Rocco, let me start with you because your Washington team really struggled with USC, but did pick up the win, and they get to go up against Colorado in the top half, who surprisingly just rolled Oregon State today.
Well, I'm not sure how much you got to see the game. I mean, it really wasn't in doubt too much, but the Huskies just couldn't put them away. They missed. I think they shot 45% from the free throw line. It was like there was a million chances to put USC away, and they just couldn't do it. And it came down to the last shot when the guy for USC inexplicably threw the ball out of bounds.
Yeah, it was awful position. Well, that's USC for you.
The guy on the bench was open. I mean,
yeah.
What do you think happens tomorrow, though, with this?
Tomorrow, yeah, Colorado's playing well. I couldn't believe how they took it to Oregon State, especially early, 20-point lead right out of the gate. Held on for a nice 15-point win. I think they're a little bit dangerous, but I do think that's a good matchup for Washington. Oregon State gives Washington a lot of problems. Those games always come down to the end. So I feel a little bit better about this Colorado matchup from a Washington perspective.
And Stalika, how about the bottom half of the bracket here? Arizona State had a huge lead over UCLA. Really, that game was a lot bigger of a blowout than this final score there. And Oregon, tough game with Utah, but they put them away late.
Certainly a much better showing for Arizona State compared to where they were a year ago at this time, where they were literally losing their heads and committing flagrant twos towards the end of the game. Oregon was in a rock fight with Utah for most of this one. They actually trailed by 4 points at halftime, but gradually were able to hit the gas in the second half.
And what happens tomorrow?
What happens tomorrow? I see both Oregon and Washington moving on.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
That's going to be a fun one. We were talking about that off the air.
And Rocco doesn't want to see Oregon in the finals, does he?
No, they're dangerous. They're really hot right now. They're playing like a tournament team. So
Yeah.
David, the Atlantic 10, it was. Oh, what is that?
Oh, look at that! The Arch Baron quarterfinal. Yes,
Chad has finally seen the light.
yes.
Oh.
It's the Arch Baron Cup, and is this the rubber match?
It is.
It is. Okay, so the winner gets an automatic bid. Are you ready? An automatic bid to the Atlantic 10 semifinals.
The Arch Baron Cup. Google it if you don't know what we're talking about. Dayton and St. Louis is one of the great rivalries out there.
Now,
St.
before
Louis-
we move on, though, I have to ask, who is your pregame pick for Harewood Horse MVP?
What the hell are you talking about?
I don't even know what he's talking about. I am going to move on after that, whatever he just said. But what happened today was Rhode Island, George Mason just got a test from GW. St. Joe's the mild upset over Duquesne, and of course SLU beating Richmond. But other than the Arch Baron Cup, David, what about the other 3 games tomorrow?
Again, I think that if anyone beats VCU along the way, it will not open up a bid. So I like them against Rhode Island. I mean, they have a tendency to struggle against them. One of the teams that's been playing really well, at least most of the time, albeit not all the time, is Davidson. If they end up facing Dayton in the semis, and I think they will, that's a pretty strong semifinal. If it's VCU, George Mason, Dayton, and Davidson, if there's going to be an upset, I think it's going to be Mason over the Bonnies. But Bonnie's playing well down the stretch.
Bonnie's playing well. I think St. Louis, if has the talent there to make that a real good Arch Baron. It's like what is the Hereford Horse?
It's
okay.
We've lost the podcast.
We've lost it.
It's 2 a.m. on Thursday of championship.
I gotta go to the Mountain West. I gotta just move on. Nevada. Oh, had a struggle with Boise State surprisingly today.
Not surprisingly, when you consider this was actually the second time that Boise State was able to give Nevada a scare. The first time was at home at Taco Bell Arena, where I think it was one of the Martin twins that did hit a 3 to actually give Nevada the win earlier in the season.
Yeah, and in the bottom half there, David, our good friend Joby Fortune has been railing on how awful basketball Utah State plays, and I watched most of this game, and he's dead right.
Well,
This was bad. They won, but it was bad.
Yeah, they're not always pretty on the court, but their profile is strong. If you look at the resume, and I mean, they have a chance at another decent or fair, albeit not good, but at least fair win tomorrow against Fresno State. I think our committee's going to take them. Joby's going to have a cowl. It'll be hilarious. But and I think the real committee's going to take them too. Even if they don't win tomorrow, I think today would have been a disaster. Tomorrow wouldn't be good if they weren't to win, but I don't think it would be so bad that it would knock them all the way out of the field.
Rocco, Nevada lost to San Diego State in the semifinal last year. Is this the revenge for them, or can the Aztecs win like their 8th in a row against the Wolfpack or something like that?
Yeah, I think they did lose to them at Nevada this year, but
They did. You're right.
Yeah, but San Diego State's got some good matchup angles with Nevada. McDaniels is a great player for San Diego State, but you see 2 different sides to San Diego State. There's the really bad, and then there's this team that showed up against Nevada, and they've played well in a few other games. But yeah, I would definitely give them a chance because Nevada's not good at putting teams away. They let teams hang around, and San Diego State's dangerous enough to make them pay for that.
Okay, let's go on to the Big Sky here, where we saw it was also quarterfinal round day here, where David Montana surprisingly got a battle from Sac State.
Yeah.
The other 3 games weren't really quite as close. Because Eastern Washington, Montana State actually ended up being a pretty good one. Too.
Yeah, you had called this, or somebody did. I was really big on Northern Colorado, but Southern Utah just boat raced them. I mean, just blew them out. You wonder where that was all year. A recent centenary winner.
Salika, you the one that called that last night. Can they keep going? Can they beat Eastern Washington too?
It's certainly possible, but I'm not sure I'm going to double down on the Thunderbirds for tomorrow night, though. I do think it's going to be Montana and Eastern Washington who have met in recent memory as far as the Big Sky title game.
Yeah, Rocco, you agree with that?
Well, last time they played, Southern Utah actually beat Eastern by 14. And then the time before, it was a 3-point win at Eastern. So I think they get after each other pretty good. I think it'll be a pretty good game. And then, I agree with Montana winning it. But I don't think they're dominant enough to just assume it's going to happen. I think these games are going to be good ones, and they're going to have to earn it in both rounds.
I think we have two really good games here though tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I agree.
I do too. It was so disappointing today watching on Pluto TV, which is I don't know what it is, but it's where you go to watch the Big Sky. And at halftime, there was a Pluto TV test pattern for 15 minutes, and we didn't get to see the floor sweepers.
We didn't get to see the floor sweepers.
Yeah, it was an outrage, and I demand answers.
Well, how about this for an answer, David? A shot of the floor sweeper.
Oh, is this from today?
No, this is from yesterday, actually.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's keep rolling here. It was the conclusion of the quarterfinal round today in the MEAC, where we saw Howard take care of Bethune-Cookman. North Carolina Central totally rolled over Delaware State.
Yeah.
David, what are you looking forward to tomorrow's games here, the semifinals?
Norfolk State, after really having a sweat against SC State, I'm kind of curious to see what they do against Howard. They should beat them, but they won't necessarily do it. The two North Carolina schools are going to be fun. I mean, I hadn't gone back and looked, but this tournament has a history of collapsing. A lot of the top seeds having trouble winning it. Chalk has held through the quarterfinals, and I don't remember that ever happening in the MEAC.
Yeah, only one only one upset total, or two upsets, I guess, if you call the 8-9 game. But top four seeds in, so very strange. Maybe we'll see Howard and NC Central in the finals because of that.
Yeah.
But Conference USA with the curtain, Rocco. Day 2 of the curtain. This is the end of the simultaneous games, but we saw a couple of really good games, especially that ODU La Tech game.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to see much of that one this morning, but I heard it was a heck of a win for ODU late. You can maybe fill in the gap on that, but this is pretty cool. It's coming down to this because we saw these 4 teams that are left in the top group with the bonus play. And bonus play was fairly even. Old Dominion had a big early advantage there, and then they lost their last 2 games. This seems like a perfect way to settle the auto bid. We've got 4 of the best 5 at least, and they're going to duke it out for the bid. I like it.
Yeah, ODU hit it 3 with about 1.5 seconds left, and then La Tech missed a shot at the buzzer. That was decent luck, David.
If you have the game was on Facebook. I don't know how the TV, but I guess Facebook has one side of the curtain and Stadium has the other. So if you want to go back and watch it, Rocco, it's still up there. I don't know who's got. Oh, CBS Sports. Okay, it's actually on television tomorrow. But what's interesting? Old Dominion and UAB kind of. I don't want to call it a rivalry. There is a bit of a tiff there, at least among some of the players and coaches. I don't think the fans are at each other's throats, but that's kind of interesting. You saw a little bit of a beef the last time these two met, but Western Kentucky has been disappointing all year long, and to say that a team that finished second has been disappointing says a lot about how good we thought they would be. We've seen them play up to a high ceiling, and they are still, if they can pull it together, which, it looks like they may be, they beat a pretty decent North Texas team today pretty handily. This is a team that could, after not having said a word about them for the last several months, with the exception of maybe under the radar, not just get into the tournament, but win a game in the round of 64.
Yeah,
they're built to do it. They don't always play up to their potential, but when they do, they can beat good teams.
And they could also lose by 30 tomorrow. That's the way they've been all season. Yeah.
And they beat Southern Miss twice this year.
Yeah.
I like the Southern Miss team, though. I would not be shocked to see the Southern Miss finally get by them. And I think that Old Dominion UAB game could be a real good one, too. UAB came on strong late in the season.
Yeah.
John, the Southland Conference, it was guess we call this quarterfinal round day, with New Orleans knocking out Lamar and Southeastern Louisiana knocking out Central Arkansas. Set up a pair of interesting semifinals.
Yeah, so far it's been pretty chalky here, and Sam Houston State, they've actually stumbled a little bit to end the regular season. It would not be far-fetched to see a team like New Orleans, for example, move on, but I think we're all in agreement that Abilene Christian more likely than not to be moving on because of their recent losses.
Yeah, and Rocco, you've been following the Southeastern Louisiana team for a while. They have a real shot here to make the NCAA tournament now.
I know. I'm excited for them. Hopefully they can step up. Last year they got all the way to the final and, of course, fell short to SFA. So here they are again, ready to make a run at it. As Stalika mentioned, Abilene Christian still dealing with those losses of players that they had due to suspension. So that would be a good one. And then I think, the other one with New Orleans, I think that's a pretty dangerous team too. I could see really any of these three winning it. I'm just counting Abilene out because of the personnel issues.
I agree with that, which is so unfortunate because they were really having a good year. It was a good story.
Yeah.
So.
David, though, Sunbelt, the 7-layer burrito tournament back up again. We saw, surprisingly, a pair of upsets seeding-wise, and including a fun game between South Alabama and Louisiana, followed by Monroe just pasting Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, Monroe has had some high water marks. I mean, I know they finished 7th, but they're certainly playing it. I mean, their ceiling is higher than that. Texas State, what's interesting is at this time last week, they were in first place. They lost their last game, and I think it dipped them all the way down the 4th with all the tiebreakers. I don't think they have any trouble tomorrow, and that sets up what I thought what had been the two best teams all year in a semifinal game rather than a championship game in that Texas State-Georgia State game, assuming Texas State gets by South. I don't think Texas State or Georgia Southern has too much trouble tomorrow at all.
I disagree with that. I think this Monroe team, especially Rocco, the way they look tonight, you've been following them a lot this year also. I think they can beat Georgia Southern.
Yeah, if they keep playing like this now, we'll see how their legs are going, playing back-to-back like this. This is where the 7-layer burrito gets a little extra thick. So, they'll have to answer the bell. But I do agree. They're capable of beating anybody when they're playing like this, and they've hung with everybody in the league. So it'll be interesting. And the other one is part of the reason why Texas State's in the 4 spot is because they got waxed at South Alabama 2 games ago. So it's going to go one of 2 ways. Either South Alabama's going to have the confidence to do it again, or Texas State's going to have revenge on their mind and clean up their act. So that'll be an interesting game too, I think.
Yeah, these will be fun ones, and we still haven't even gotten the top 2 teams in. We won't talk about that until tomorrow night. But Stalika, it was first round day in the American tournament, and it was just a bunch of boring games, quite honestly. And I'm not joking.
No. It was also interesting with our colleague Zach, who would normally be cheering for UConn, but you had to wonder how much part of him wanted to see South Florida advance, but that dream is dead for this year.
Yeah, and we now have 4 games tomorrow that I think 2 of them, at least, the Temple Wichita State and the UCF Memphis game could be interesting.
Oh, very interesting. Memphis playing really well. Also getting to play at home. But Central Florida, I was lukewarm on them for most of the year. I think I was less impressed with them than the rest of you all were, but that certainly changed with how well they played against some really good teams down the stretch. I mean, that last game against Houston was so good. You're kind of pulling for that rematch, but it's not going to be easy getting past Memphis.
Rocco, the Mid-American Conference, we had quarterfinal round day today, and Buffalo looks so good. I mean, just really good.
The Unstoppables, they look amazing. I've liked this team all year. I'm hoping that they keep it going for 2 more rounds. I mean, a bid thief would be nice to see, but I mean, they're just so on a different level. I think Bowling Green might be their biggest challenger still in the bracket. They don't look as sharp as they did maybe about 3-4 weeks ago when they beat Buffalo, but they're still dangerous. And this Northern Illinois team is kind of a cool story. They played really well today.
And they beat Buffalo during the regular season also, albeit at home.
Right.
Nice win over a pretty decent Toledo team there.
Very nice win.
John, any shot that Central Michigan upsets Buffalo tomorrow?
Not the way Buffalo has been playing, although I do like how Central Michigan has been playing to finish the year.
Yeah, they got a little hot late, but John, let me stick with you because it was. Ooh, let's scroll down there. Yeah, there it is. It was quarterfinal round day in the Big West tournament, which began with the Rivervine Cup, which was not very good of a game, but ended with a few. The other three games were all close, and we almost saw a couple of big upsets. Although at the end of the day, the four out of the top five seeds advanced.
And Long Beach State was the one that actually got the game winner with 0.3 of a second remaining, and Hawaii was not able to at least get a shot off to at least try to send it to overtime or possibly get the game winner. But with reseeding in place, we will get the bracket we were originally expecting with Irvine and Long Beach in one half, and then the Gauchos and Fullerton on the other half.
Yeah, Santa Barbara, all kinds of trouble with Northridge today. Trailed for a lot of that game.
Yeah, Rocco, what do you see happening tomorrow?
Well, we got the black and blue rivalry in the semifinals, which is exciting. UC Irvine's really only bad loss this year was to this very Long Beach team on their home court. So these teams get after it. We're going to throw the records out the window tomorrow. Congratulations, by the way, to Long Beach State coach Don Monson, who got his 200th career win. They came back from down by 18 points to beat Hawaii, and they won it with on a jumper basically at the buzzers with 0.5 seconds left. Awesome win for them. So I think that's going to be a great game. And then the way Fullerton and Santa Barbara have been really inconsistent this last month, I really can't even tell you who's going to win it, but it'll be a good game.
Be a good game. David, it was also quarterfinal round day in the WAC, which began with Chicago State getting their asses kicked, quite honestly. And none of the games were ended up being that close. I guess the Grand Canyon-Seattle game was the best of the four. But
Right. Well, I saw something on Twitter that summed it up. Northwestern is Chicago's Big Ten team. They were out. DePaul is Chicago's Big East team. They were out. Loyola Chicago is out. So Chicago State was the last great hope for Chicago, and they came up short. No Chicago teams left. But
how about tomorrow then?
Yeah, I said going into this game that I figured that the winner of this game would win the conference tournament.
You might be right. So then, if they're going to be Rio Grande, then what about the Utah Valley Grand Canyon game tomorrow?
It's a toss-up. Utah Valley getting a real test from the Roos. Kind of surprising that UMKC stepped up on them like that. Grand Canyon Seattle was good, but Grand Canyon opened it up in the end. Based on how they played today, I was more impressed with Utah Valley than Grand Canyon. But overall, I think Grand Canyon's had the better year. And if I had to guess, it would be with them. Hopefully, what sets up round 3 of what is always the intriguing Grand Canyon, New Mexico State game.
Yeah, that's become a real good rivalry out here in the WAC.
Yeah.
One other conference to get to, it was not in action today, but it is back in action tomorrow. It's semifinal round day in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, moving to Birmingham, Alabama, where Grambling will be playing Prairie View. Alabama State will be playing Texas Southern. And Rocco, your insights into these two games.
Well, I mean, we've been pulling for Grambling for a couple of years, and they're 2 wins away. I think, gosh, was it last year? I think you guys would know when they weren't eligible.
That was last year.
Yeah. So they've been waiting for this opportunity. Prairie View's been the team with the bullseye on their back all year. They only lost 1 game in the league. So hopefully that'll be a good game. I just like to see Grambling be able to hang with them. A little surprised to see Alabama State get to this round. I think Texas Southern probably rolls them.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think we're going to end up with the Texas Southern Prairie View final, no matter how much you root for some of these other teams. John, it's survival board time. If you look up there, you could see the tab for the survival board as well as all those conference tournaments. But can you tell the viewers that may not know what this survival board thing is?
Well, the survival board rules have not changed over the past 24 hours. We're still putting teams in a bold that are either going to be locks by our the Hoops HD selection committee, or all caps for teams that have already won their conference tournaments. Teams that are in italics are going to be under consideration. So these are teams that still have a pathway to get into the tournament, or if they've completed their regular season, are going to be subject to debate by our same committee. But at the same time, if you're in regular font like Wichita State, you lose, you're screwed, you're done.
Right. And We do this, David, as a service to the NCAA tournament selection
Right.
committee so that they know what teams to be considering, correct?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. They come to this board and they just get a snapshot of who they should be looking at, who they should be taking, and who they should be leaving out.
Now, as you can see, heading into the day, there were 177 teams left total on the board, and 41 spots had been locked up either through a lock or a bid that was clinched. Now, we locked a few more teams in today. We had a lot of teams knocked out. As a result of today's action, could we even do a drum roll here, maybe?
Oh, we got the drum roll back.
We now have 129 teams left, and 47 out of 68 spots are locked in there.
Yeah.
So only 21 spots left that could be either won or taken through an at-large. Maximum of 10 at-large bids remaining.
Yeah. And again, a very busy day, like, with 48 teams getting knocked out. And again, just what a great basketball binging day. It's bittersweet because it's close to the end. We're not going to have another day like this, quite like this, until Feast Week of next year, where you have so many games day after day after day. There's a lot of games tomorrow, but not as many as there were today.
There's a lot of good games tomorrow, though. I think it'll be a real fun day. But let's go ahead and pull this down, David, because I think that you have another issue you wanted to discuss, correct?
Well, we just haven't been getting anywhere. Like we our goal, and it was a realistic goal, we had a great plan, was that we were going to fix a lot of things that were wrong with college basketball and improve upon things that we felt that we could improve on by raising awareness, drawing issues to it, and then reaching out to people via Twitter to help us. No one has really responded back. I know you tweeted to the Fonz yesterday. I don't know why the hell you tweeted to the Fonz, by the way.
Because we need to fix the tournament. But go ahead, David.
Yeah, we need.
What are you fixing today?
Well, I mean, it was more of a particular issue. This is specific to the Big Sky, and I was just furious that they didn't show the floor sweepers. I think we all were. So I decided, like, that's my cause for today. Okay. So let me see here. This is a little hard to do, but, like, this is the person I am reaching out to help us. I don't see why. This is Alex Winter, who played Bill S. Preston Esquire in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. This is the man who's going to bring the floor sweepers back to the Big Sky tournament. And
Bill S. Preston Esquire.
Yeah, we're going to tweet to him. It's like Pluto TV showed a Pluto test pattern at halftime of today's Big Sky tournament instead of the floor sweepers. This is an outrage. Please use your influence to make sure this never happens again. And the tweet is away to Bill S. Preston Esquire.
David, what does he have to do with the Big Sky?
Well, I just maybe maybe he wasn't the best.
Let's go to any final thoughts.
I've already sent the tweet.
Salika, let me go to you first. Final thoughts.
Now that we've gathered ourselves from earlier, I will just say that the Harewood Horse Trophy actually goes to the MVP of the Arch Baron Cup. So
you just made us lose it again.
So far this year, we have had former Rutgers standout DJ Foreman win it for St. Louis, and Jalen Crutcher actually won the MVP for the return game at Dayton. So if you're looking for an early favorite, look for freshman phenom Obi Toppin for the Dayton Flyers to win it tomorrow night.
Salika is predicting the Harry Horse Trophy. I don't know what. Rocco, can you take this away?
That's a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. So I just wanted to give a special shout out tonight. It was first in history for a certain school. They joined the WAC in 2014 under the name Texas Pan American. They are now known as UT Rio Grande Valley, and they have a new nickname, the Vaqueros, when they used to be the Bronx. And they had lost in the opening WAC tournament game every year until today, when they beat Cal State Bakersfield by 15, and they are now going to be in their first semifinal against the big boys, New Mexico State, tomorrow night. So good luck, Vaqueros, and congratulations.
And they gave New Mexico State some games this year, so who knows?
Some players.
David, just another note here. We did begin our mock selection committee meetings tonight. I think Salika is going to put a write-up about what happened there. We have 8 teams that we voted in tonight, so that you can read that on the website. But David, any other final thoughts to end the show?
We were supposed to talk about that, I think.
Okay, you want to talk about it a little bit? Talk about it.
Well, okay. Well, I'll let you take it away. But like you said, we did our initial ballot. We had 27 teams in. We did voting, and we got back up to 35. I don't think I have the board still up. I don't. This is great television. But I don't have the board up. I can't show them the board. I am failing as a puppet right now.
Okay, well, David, then here, I'll tell you what. Since we're just really screwing this show up, let's go ahead and I'll put it up here. This is been using with our mock tournament selection committee. It should be looking.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there
it is. And we actually voted in 8 teams tonight. In addition, congratulations to two teams that won awards. Chicago State won our Centenary Award, worst team in D1, and Vanderbilt won our Kevin Stallings Award because he used to be their head coach.
And they're the worst Power 5 team.
I thought it was because Kevin Stallings used to be their coach.
Well, that too.
Okay. But how do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was just saying, like, it's neat to see this much enthusiasm around college basketball when you have the passion for it that we do and the love for it that we do. You like to see this much energy. Everybody loves March. Everybody talks about how exciting there is at March. I guess my final thought is that if you just found us, and judging by the numbers, a lot of people are just now finding us. If you love March a lot, you'll probably love November at least a little bit. Everything that we're talking about now, everything we're going through, all the bracketology, it didn't just fall out of the sky. Everything that happened all season long played into it. Basketball's great all year. There's big games all year. Maybe not this big of a binge with this many knockout games, but we do this every night. We do shows every week, but every day there's big games, there's meaningful games. Jump on board earlier. It's great.
On that note, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. From Bracketeer.org, we had Rocco Miller, we have David Griggs from the Puppet Bunker. From the Air Raid Bunker, we have John Stalika. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow night to tell you who won the Harewood Horse Trophy.